Alright guys, welcome to a demo. This one's going to be on special effect brushes, special effects brushes. In some of these examples, like this one here and this one here, I want you to paint in the entire image. So in this like empty space that's still remaining there, I want you to just paint out. So bring those colors out and play with actually painting in the empty white space of the image. Then once you paint in the image, then you can use your splatter brush effects on top of it. Again, splatters, these are just all special effect type brushes, so it's more of like just something you put on right at the end of something to give it that final touch. All right, so let's get into this first one right here. So in order to keep things clean in our workspace, I'm going to take my rectangular marquee tool and I'm going to select this image area. So something like that. Try to do the best job. If you kind of lose some pixels there, it's not going to be too big of an issue. So I'm going to hit hotkey B for my brush tool. You can see I've got my Kyle Ultimate Inking Thin. So I'm just going to select that guy. And then I want to show you a few things. How to sample a color and then paint with it. So right now, blue is currently set for my brush, but I don't want to paint blue right there. So if you hold Alt, you'll notice that the eyedropper shows up, and then you can click on the color that you want to paint. So in this case, I want to get that light orange, yellow orange, and now I'm just going to paint in the sky here. Again, recognize that I have this composition selected with my rectangular marquee tool, so I'm not painting outside here because only where I want to paint is selected. Holding Alt again, sampling the blue mountain color, I'm going to paint that in. I'm just going to paint over where this river is, make my brush bigger, and just quickly kind of paint out all the white. Typically in painting terms, this would be referred to as blocking in. I'm now going to make my brush quite a bit smaller. I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to throw my smoothing way up just so I get a nice like smooth line. And I'll just kind of fill in that space. I'm going to make my brush bigger here. Just kind of smooth out the shape of this river. And I'm just going to say that's good enough. That looks pretty good. So we built out the image kind of quickly. And now we're going to actually apply this splatter brush that you guys can see right here. So I'm going to go to my options bar, go to my brush presets. I'm going to select the first one there, splatter brushes, and it's the spatter bot tilt. So I'll click on that. I'm going to hold Alt and sample the color of the sun, and then I'm just going to start clicking in here. Now notice the brush can shoot out, it can scatter pretty far out, so you probably want to make your brush smaller so it doesn't affect the entire area. Or depending on like what your goals are, you might want to make it smaller or bigger. So in this case, like the effect I want to go for is like the sun is exploding out and it's creating this light effect around everywhere. The secondary effect I want to do is just like make the water look like it's sprinkling out maybe in the foreground. So we'll do that in the bottom and some parts in the sun. There you can kind of just see this like splattery effect. Again, it's kind of a fun way to just like modify an image without having to go in there with a natural created texture and layering it on top. So using the brushes can be a really neat way to bring that extra level of texture or detail. So I'm going to deselect this and I'll move right on to the next one. This one I've already scaled the image out, so let's go ahead and select it again with our rectangular marquee tool, and we'll use the next splatter effect here. So again, all of these different splatters are going to do different things. Hotkey B to get my brush. I'm going to select a different one there. A lot of the splatters, again, they're very similar to each other. They're just going to operate maybe with more intensity. And so in this case, I just want you to kind of see like, all right, how does that compare to the other one? If I change my flow or opacity or smoothing, it doesn't do anything. In this case, I think all the splatters are relatively similar to each other. They're just going to act slightly different or have a different texture. Okay. Deselect. Let's move on to the next one. Rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to click and drag out. And I've got my third splatter. In this case, though, you can see we're going to need to paint in the missing part of the image. So I'll get my inking brush again. Close this window. I'm going to hold Alt. I'll sample the color. And then block it in. I'd encourage you, like when you're blocking in, try to move fast, just so you're not wasting time trying to make everything perfect. I'm going to sample the mountain color, block that in. I can paint all of this blue and then paint the river in shortly. Lastly, I'll get the river color, hold this out. Seems to me like the river would flow something like that. All right. So there's my quick block in. I made my own. I expanded the composition by painting. And now we're going to apply the last splatter. So again, I'm just going to stick with the same location of the sun and just see how that actually applies. So close our window. I'm going to hold Alt to sample the sun color. I'm going to zoom in so we can see what's going on. And then I'm just going to sprinkle some sunlight around where the sun is located. I'll sample the water here too, just so we can see what that does as well. And we'll have that for comparison. All right, so those are our splatters. Let's go ahead and get into our next section, which will actually be a blender. So Kyle's concept brushes, again, blenders. In this case, what I want you to do for these two next blending exercises is just blend everything together to make it look like it just smudges all perfectly together. So I'm going to take my rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to select this composition right there, get all the white. Hit B for my brush tool, go to my preset, get that concept blender right there. In this one, you can see the strength is set to 24. Let's just leave it there, and then we're just gonna go through and just like see what it looks like to blend all of this together. So I'm just gonna start blending. You can see it's actually pulling some colors in from the composition to the left. This is going too strong, so I'm gonna stop right away and just say like, that's too strong. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. So let's back out of there. I'm going to drop my strength down to like, let's do 10%. It's at 6, let's go 10. And I'm going to make my brush smaller too, so somewhere around there. And now you can see like the effects are definitely a lot lighter. The goal that I want you to shoot for, I'm going to make the brush even smaller. Just see if you can actually like blend everything perfectly together. So get these transitions from white to red, from red to this like darkish red purple color, red violet. Now, as I use this blender, I'm noticing like the size of the brush really directs like how it blends. So play with changing the size of your brush. And notice as well, it is sampling pixels that are outside the selection. That's a good thing to know about this blender, and probably most blenders. There we go. Now we got this abstract, kind of like glowing composition. We're just kind of blending all those colors together. Understanding the effects of a blender can be a good determiner in just like whether or not you're going to use it. So let's move on to the next one. Same business here, it's just a different blender. So I'm going to select the entire composition with my rectangular marquee tool. Hit B, go to, this is the scratch blend. And then the strength right now is at 100, so you can see that gets really aggressive. So I'm going to drop this one down to, let's do 50% on this one. And I'm going to make my brush smaller, and then I'm just going to go for it. Notice it's attacking it pretty strong. at 50%, like most of this is probably just gonna like fall into the same kind of colors. There we go. So there it's like you can compare the two of them. To some degree, this one reminds me of more of a natural texture. This one starts to get into like, I don't know, more of like a watery or like looking through foggy glass type texture. All right, deselect that. Let's go on to this next brush, which is kind of cool. It's like a foliage brush. So I'm gonna get my brush tool out. The first thing I'm gonna do is just select like a brownish color. So I'll go to the oranges and get a brownish color. Then I'm gonna get one of my classic cartoonish brushes, and I'm just gonna draw what'll be like a tree trunk here. So I'm just gonna draw a line straight down. And now I'm gonna go and get that foliage brush. So where's that? Here. It's right here. Perfect. To sample a color, I'm gonna hold Alt, and you can see it's gonna pick a color. And so I picked all of those kind of like greenish colors there. And you can see with this particular brush, it's both blending colors together, but it's putting them in the shape of leaves. So I'm gonna throw some more leaves in there. I'm gonna pull some of that dark blue in there and maybe put some of that as well. So now I've got this like kind of interesting tree that's showing up within that composition. Again, holding Alt, sample colors from different places in your composition that are in this exercise, and then put them in there to create a tree. Deselect. For these last two, these are kind of like these halftone or Screentone specialty brushes. So these ones are kind of fun, but this one's going to be pretty simple. It's a round brush. I'm going to hold Alt to sample the background color, then I'll just make my brush pretty big, and then I'll just draw over the figure that's in that composition. So we got a walking guy, and then for this one, we'll change our brush. I'm going to sample the background color, and then we'll paint these pink halftones on Dwayne Johnson. Kind of makes that background color come through. These can be kind of like fun effects to put on top of photographs. And it's a simple way to just incorporate the color of the background with an image that you have in front of it. All right, so that's going to be our demo for our last exercise on the brushes. And I encourage you, particularly when you're painting in these compositions, have fun with it. Make the compositions kind of fun, and then with the tree, like have fun with that as well. Make a beautiful little tree for this exercise. All right, guys, take care.